Hi, Morgan here for Onefinity, and today I've got another real easy project for you. This is big old serving tray. I had some scrap pieces of oak laying around, and with Thanksgiving right around the corner, I figured I'd make it into a nice big turkey tray. One side for dark meat, one side for white meat, gravy, and cranberry sauce. I originally designed this to be a simple 2D carve with pockets and profiles, but then it got a little bit more involved. For the two big outer pockets, I gave the bottom a nice big 1-inch radius. But then I realized I don't have a bowl and tray bit with that big of a radius. As far as I can tell, there's no bit on the market that has a 1-inch radius and a long enough length of cut to reach at the bottom of the tray. So I switched gears and decided to run this as a 3D carve instead of 2D. It ended up taking longer, but that's fine. I just let it run while I was working on other stuff. So let's take a look at how it's toolpathed. I opened up Vectric and created a new project the size of my material. 24 inches wide, 11 3/8 height, and 2 3/4 thick. Then I imported the 3D model, which was saved as an STL. I centered it and made sure it was scaled correctly. As with any 3D carve, the software will automatically place the modeling plane at the center of the material's thickness, which serves as a limit to how deep it'll cut on one side of the material. The bottom of all these pockets are well below the modeling plane, so we need to change the base height. The material is 2.75 inches thick, and I want the pockets to be 2.5 inches deep. So I'll go into the Components tab over here on the left and make sure that my shape height is 2.5 and my base height is 2.75. That tells the software that the vertical position of my model is at the very bottom of the material. I started with a 2D pocket toolpath using a 3/8 upcut spiral bit just to hog out a lot of the waste before running my 3D toolpaths. I had the bit running at 18,000 RPMs, 100 inches per minute, cutting 0.2 inches deep per pass. And that's real conservative, but because of the physical properties of oak, has a tendency to tear out. So the limitation isn't the machine, the spindle, or the tool. I'm just taking into account the nature of the material. Just because your machine can handle the workload, that doesn't mean the material can. So it's always important to be mindful of that when you're setting up your toolpaths. After those pockets, I created a 3D roughing toolpath using the same bit. The bit settings are the same, and here I used a Z-level roughing strategy as opposed to a 3D raster. The machining limit boundary is set to the model boundary with a boundary offset of 0.25 inches. Okay, let's go ahead and preview that. Terrific. It's ugly as sin, but remember, it's just a roughing toolpath. Next, we're going to create a 3D finishing toolpath. I have an extra long reach 3/8 ball nose bit from Bits and Bits, which is what made this whole thing possible. I have this bit set to 18,000 RPMs with an 8% step over, cutting 0.2 inches depth per pass, running 120 inches per minute. Again, I'm using the model boundary as my machining limit. Then lastly, I created a vector around the model and a profile toolpath to cut the whole thing out. I used the same 3/8 spiral bit that I used for the roughing toolpath with the same settings, and I set the total depth to 2.5 inches. I knew I'd be routing a chamfer around the bottom edge after pulling it off the machine, so I didn't mind a little bit of waste hanging off after separating the part with a jigsaw. After that, I brought it over to the router table and beveled the bottom edge with a 30-degree chamfer bit. Then I flipped it over and hit the top edge of all the compartments with a 1/4 inch roundover bit, sanded it, and slathered some finish on it. And that's it. The V-carve cut file for this project will be available on the Onefinity user forum, as well as the DXF, SVG files, and the STL model. And it goes without saying, play around with the model and make it for whatever you want. It doesn't have to be for turkey. It could be for chips and salsa and guac. Use it for whatever you want. I don't care. Well, that's all I have for you today. And as always, I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe to notifications, do all that YouTube stuff. Thanks for watching. Y'all be good.